Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar post-trade edition. Special guest today. We'll get to him in just a second, a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway because we think he's a cool dude. Okay, so things have not worked out exactly as GMET predicted.
No.
But I feel more optimistic about this season and going forward than I have in like 6 weeks. If I'm being perfectly honest, just because you kind of know, right? Like fear of the unknown and the worry and the what's going to happen. And sometimes you just feel better going, okay, well, now we know what's going to happen. You know, whether it's for better or for worse, doesn't necessarily matter as much as like, okay, now we know the hand we're dealt. And the hand we're dealt is 2 first-round picks in 26 and 28, and a couple of thirds, and like $37 million in cap space. Nikishin's agent has said, I think it was yesterday, the day before, that he wants Nikishin over here as soon as possible, which could mean in time for a deep playoff run, which I don't think is going to happen. But all signs point toward things being much improved, which is what we were looking for. So, how are you feeling, sir?
I think the last 48 hours. Actually, if I'm being honest, the last month and a half has proven what we've said a number of times, is that emotion, especially in sports, can get the better of logic and reason. The love of the players that you have will always supersede the actual facts and the actual reason that we would normally have. Now, between you and I, we like to think that we know a lot about, and we've got fair, reasonable thoughts on the situations at hand, but we don't have all the goods. And there's really only one person that we could bring in who could give us the goods, break things down, and bring us the reason and logic that we need. We've had him on before. I'd like to think that he's our guy, and we don't like to share him with anyone else. He, of course, talks to many, many people, but he's our guy. And it's the sports director at Spectrum News 1. He is Mike Solarte, and we are delighted to have you in, Mike, to help us navigate what has been really a hurricane. I mean, the dust has settled. The wind is gone. This was a hurricane for the last month and a half, and now the dust is settled, and we got to look at it all as it's laid out. And we couldn't think of a better person.
Is it a path of destruction, or did we survive pretty well? I like that, Ray.
Here we go.
Well, that's why you pay him the big bucks to have him on now, right? Is Ray just lays it out there, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful soliloquy. Hello, boys. Thanks for having me on. Yes, guys, that's perfect. That is apropos of everything right there, because the trade that landed Rantanen into Carolina shook up the fan base because Marty Necas, he's a fan favorite. People loved him.
Yep.
He was the king of the big goal, scored overtime winners like they were going to rot. And he gets shipped out with Jack Drury, another young, talented, I should say young, but in terms of his NHL career, young. Yeah. But fan favorite, gritty guy, megawatt smile. You loved seeing the kid light it up when he had the opportunity, scored some fun and amazing goals, and they get sent to Colorado. But Carolina, the fan base since day one has been clamoring. Give us a superstar. Get us a guy. And, I know Paul Coffey wore the Hurricane logo on his chest for a bit, but that Paul Coffey was not the Paul Coffey that was lighting the world up and scoring 120 points a year as a defenseman with the Edmonton Oilers back in the heyday. And when I say back in the heyday, that was exactly unleaded black coffee. But so Eric Tulsky in his first year steps into the plate, digs in, tightens up the batting gloves, takes a big swing, and brings in a guy who's averaging 96 points his last 3 years, gone over 100 a couple of times. Brings him in, and therein lies the first swirl of your hurricane analogy there. Now, it starts to gather strength because not so much what Rantanen's doing on the ice, but can they lock him up long term? And they tried. Eric Tulsky tried, and I love the shortening to GMET. That's pretty good too. The fact that the Hurricanes went out and got him in the first place was step one. Step two, trying to sign him, and Kevin Weeks may not be considered a long in the tooth hockey insider, but he's connected. And when you see him coming out reporting, and then others reporting that Carolina, as the trade deadline approaches, they're trying to re-sign him, and I don't know if the term was 7 or 8 years.
I believe.
But do you think it was 8?
It was 8 by 12.75 is what the rumor is.
The rumor, no. That's what y'all got there. I got 8 times 13.25, which
that's a lot of.
I'm not a math major. I'm just going to say that's a lot. All right, that's a lot of cabbage.
That's at least 9 digits.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so you get 8 times 13.25, and he doesn't sign it. He doesn't agree to it before the trade deadline. Okay, you're not going any higher, and now Tulsky's got to go to, okay, what's plan B? Well, plan B is we'd love to run through the playoffs with you, but if you're going to walk and you're not going to sign back here after we just give you this, then we got to do something. And the national pundits and international pundits, I mean, both Canada and the United States are saying, oh, the Hurricanes got fleeced here, and it's not a good, this looks bad for them. What would look worse is if they go to the playoffs and not achieve their goal, and then Rantanen goes someplace else, and the Hurricanes get 0 in return. That looks worse. But at the same time, the fact that Tulsky took the swing to bring the guy in the first place, I think deserves some credit. But then on deadline day, to flip Rantanen, who agrees to an 8 by 12, which again, not a math major, but that's less than 13.25.
It is.
To go to Dallas, okay. Hurricanes get 2 first rounders, as you mentioned, Brad. 2 third rounders, as you mentioned, and it's spread out starting in 26 to 28. So there's not an immediate return in terms of future help.
Yeah.
But they also get a 22-year-old kid at Logan Stankoven, who I adore. Absolutely adore this kid. I mean, when he first come up last season, I actually had him on my fantasy roster once he was on the roster full time, because I thought this kid's got something. I mean, hand to God, I do. And I couldn't get him this year because someone drafted him. And 29 points in 59 games so far, and he's not playing top line minutes with Dallas. So I mean, the kid's got the goods. I love it. So for Tulsky to do all of that, and then admit that because the deal happened so tight to the deadline, he couldn't do anything more with the draft picks. Like, he couldn't package those to try to bring somebody else in, although he admits he tried.
Mm-hmm.
This is the GM that Hurricanes fans have craved for years. And there's no disrespect to Jim Rutherford, no disrespect to Donnie Waddell, but this is the kind of activity that the Hurricanes have craved forever. And no one at the time, when Rutherford made the move to send Sandus Oslins to Florida to get Brett Hedican and Kevin Adams, no one batted and they're like, what the heck is that? Well, they went to the final that year in 2002, yep. And then in 2006, he brings in Dougie Wade, he brings in Mark Recchi, and they win a cup. So, but even then, Doug Wade and Mark Recchi weren't viewed as huge guys to contribute on the ice. They were locker room guys. and they did kick in their fair share of offense, but weight blew out his shoulder, and then Recchi continued to play into the Cup final with Edmonton. But no one thought anything of those guys because they weren't young in their prime superstars. They were on the back nines of their career, and so those moves didn't resonate as much. This one did, and that's why fans are so unhappy with Rantanen because he didn't want to be. Why didn't you sign? We were giving you everything. We're giving you more. Rantanen could have gotten $12 billion a year from Colorado.
Yeah.
Think about that, guys. I mean, he could have gotten that money from Colorado and stayed put, been playing with Nathan McKinnon, and still racking up points, and never would have had to fill out a change your address card. Now he's done it twice in 6 weeks, and and so at the end of the day, my Inigo Montoya. There's too much. Let me sum up. There's one thing that you have to bear in mind here, guys, and that is if you've got a player who doesn't want to be with you, then you don't want that player. And at the end of the day, Rantanen didn't want to be in Carolina. And there was an interview with Scott Oak Saturday night from Edmonton where he figured out in his brain, last week was when I figured it wasn't. Well, last week?
Yeah.
Last week, you know what? Carolina could have moved you long before the deadline if that was the case, but they wanted to keep you, and you played possum with him. You didn't come back to the table to get a deal hammered out because you didn't want to be there. So he didn't want to be around, and for whatever reason, and I'm not here to talk bad about the player, but
you can leave that to us.
Well, yeah, he didn't. I mean, he didn't want to be in Carolina as the bottom line for whatever reason. Yeah. Maybe he got to Carolina at the wrong time when the flu was running through the locker room. Maybe he didn't like Rod Brindamore's system. Maybe it was too demanding of him in terms of his style of game. Maybe his girlfriend didn't like Raleigh because there wasn't enough shopping. I don't know.
He dropped her name. He actually in the TSN interview. Sorry to jump in, James Duthie. He did an interview on Friday, and he gave an almost identical interview to the one that he did on Saturday night, basically saying there's a lot of different things I had to consider before I signed, and he was dropping like changes in life, and then he drops his girlfriend's name in there. And it felt like you're throwing your girlfriend under the bus. That's not going to go well. But he added everything, and it was like, you're right. You're right, Mike. He just didn't want to be here.
Yeah, and that. Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
Oh, just real quick. So, for the petty among the Carolina fan base, because we have petty people, I include myself among them. 2 things to remember. You don't need to hate on Rantanen. One is, as much as I dislike Trouba, look at how Trouba talked about not moving because of his wife. But he was like, I'm making the decision because I'm not going to do that to her because she is in school and she's getting her doctorate. Versus Rantanen be like, not throwing her under the bus, but like, you can't shift any blame to wives and girlfriends. 0. Trouba did it in what I thought was a really classy, great way. I actually respect him a lot for saying, like, I'm making the choice because I love her and this is it. And not that Mikko didn't do the same thing, but the verbiage he used was more of a here's another reason, right? The second reason you don't have to hate Mikko and still be petty about it is, you said, Mike, he could have stayed in Colorado had his agent not bungled the whole thing. So the fact that he's not in Colorado is kind of the karma piece of all this, right?
Yeah.
And then real quick, lastly, what I said, and I was wrong. I said GMET took a home run grand slam swing and missed. And that's not what happened. He took a grand slam swing and got a ground rule double. He still made a good play because at the end of the day, you traded Natchez for 2 firsts and 2 thirds. You would not have traded Natchez for 2 firsts and 2 thirds. Period. End story. Could not happen. And you traded Drury for Hall, and then you still have Stankoven. So you can put him with the Drury piece. But if you think you're getting 2 firsts, 2 thirds, and Stankoven for just Natchez and straight up Hall for Drury, I would do those 2 deals 10 days out of 10. So is it the Hall we could have gotten? No. But if Mikko's on your roster today, then it's another Gensel situation where you know he's not going to sign. Everybody else knows he's not going to sign. You're only going to get compensation from somebody who wants first dibs at re-signing him, and it's going to be like a third or second round pick tops.
Mhm.
I think Eric Tulsky took a big swing. It's like you said, Mike, this franchise is the fans have been begging for them to make these kind of swings. And did it work out perfect? No. But this isn't a strikeout. He didn't ground out to first, to use a baseball analogy. It's like a ground rule double or maybe a triple instead of grand slam. You still came out ahead. And I had completely forgotten. I like the metaphor used with the Sanders Oaklands trade. Why did you just trade our one super all-star caliber player for Hedekin and my favorite player, Kevin Adams? At the time, I said the same thing. But you traded a player who didn't fit the system for two guys who fit it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked last week, Gestalt, right? Things being bigger than the sum of their parts. That's what you're looking for building a team. I have 23 individual guys. I need to make them worth 30 guys, right? I need to make this a whole. So sorry, that went on longer than I meant.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Tulsky took a swing for the fences and still hit one between the outfielders and drove in the runs. So at the end of all of this, for the fan base, and if you follow me on X, I still call it Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter. Where all the angst was coming out, I was trying to give folks a little bit of calm in all of it by posting the Godfather gif of a young Al Pacino saying, "It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business."
Yep.
And that's what the bottom line is here. You don't have to. You can be upset that Rantanen didn't want to be here because look, I've lived in North Carolina going on 30 years. Okay,
Mhm.
I love the state. Lived in Raleigh. I'm in Charlotte now. I love this state. And look, Rantanen came at a bad time. It was really, really cold. The flu was running through the locker room. He, was struggling to fit into the offense. And remember, how will you remember his 13-game era where he was half a point a game player? I mean, he was not himself. Was it something going on between the ears? Did he not like the system? Was he missing his favorite restaurant in Colorado? I don't know, but to be down on not wanting to be in Carolina has to come down to a number of factors, and he didn't get the best of what the Carolinas can offer, and that's just timing, and that just kind of sucks for him, and it does happen. But he's gonna wish you were in the Carolinas in the off season, when he's around, when it's not 7,000 degrees in the Dallas Metroplex.
Yeah.
Been there, experienced it. Not a bag of monkeys there. It's awful.
No.
So he's going to be missing out on the golf here in Carolina if he plays golf.
Yeah.
But if the other part too, where you talked about Trouba and the wife. Okay, wives different than girlfriends.
They are.
Wives you committed to. Girlfriends, you can get another. I mean, especially if you're an NHL hockey player making 96 mil, if there's a problem with the girlfriend, you can always trade up. So you're not that committed. And again, I'm not here to talk about the player. I'm not here to say he made a bad call. My opinion is I think he's going to regret it. But then again, because he's going to have to be playing against his old team, who knows him very, very well. And as we saw in his debut with Dallas against Edmonton on Friday night, the Edmonton Oilers remember him quite well as they were banging him around the sheet. I saw him take one across the middle of the ice. I don't know who delivered it, but man, he just got flummoxed. And I just thought, "Oh, welcome back to the West, Nico." So
what I noticed there was no stars came over. Like there were no knuckles being shoved or anything.
No one came to his aid.
I think back in the day it would have been Drury sticking up for him as small as he is, right? But I don't think that would have happened a couple of times in Raleigh without somebody being like, "Hey, like that's me going in. You can't do that."
Boys, we saw you spray Kotkaniemi drop the mitts off the opening draw.
Wasn't that
If KK's going to throw knuckles, anybody in that room will throw knuckles for would have thrown knuckles for Rantanen. They would have.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jarvis being one of the smaller guys or whether it's Eric Jordan Stahl,
Yeah.
being one of the bigger forwards. Any one of those guys would have come in there because that's the culture that they've got in Carolina. So, but hey, again, wish Rantanen well. He's got $96 million to spend at Neiman Marcus down in Dallas on his girlfriend. So go for it. Have a blast. And Logan Stankoven, welcome to Carolina. And I look forward to seeing what this young man's all about because at 22 years of age, a right-handed shot. He's played 89 games, or at the time of the trade, had played 89 games and has 59 points in basically just over a season as a 22-year-old. I mean, you tell me where the runway is because I don't see the end of it. It's a long way down the road.
Long way down. And to circle back to the baseball euphemism that we were talking about before, I think it will take all of 10 seconds in his first shift for everyone to understand it wasn't a ground rule double. It was most definitely a stand-up triple. That's really what it's going to be. Because I'm a little further west, and so I've had a chance to see a few more of those games with Stankoven, and wow. Okay. Now, on Twitter, a lot of complaints that we only got Stankoven, and why didn't we get Wyatt Johnston and stuff? And okay, first things first, in negotiations, I don't know if everyone is aware of it. You can't hold a gun on the opposite GM and say, this is the guy that we want. This is the guy that you're going to give up. As much as you think you might have the leverage, you cannot force another team to give up whichever player. It just, no matter what you have, no matter what you're offering, you cannot force it to happen. To find someone, as Eric Tulsky referred to as, and it was brilliant, my eyes lit up the way he said it. Stankoven is a player who was born a Carolina Hurricane. That is how he plays. It gives me shivers right now to say it. Never mind when we're going to get a chance to watch it. You'll all see. He is he will be maybe the grittiest guy that we have. And everyone, but he's so small. Do we need to get smaller? He plays well above his height, well above his weight. He can score, and he is relentless. They did one of those, make you feel good things on Stankoven in Dallas. And every one of their best players all identified him as intense, a bulldog, relentless. Does that sound familiar to any one of you Caniacs out there? That's what we want. That's what we love. That is what Rod wants out of all of his players. He is everything that makes the Carolina Hurricanes so hard to play against. That's it. So it'll take 10 seconds. You'll see him on the ice. You'll see him in a shift, and you will fall in love, instantly becoming a fan favorite. And you'll all say, Mikko, who? Like, that's what it'll be like. That's what it'll be like. I guarantee it.
A lot of folks were saying that the last 13 games. Where's Mikko?
Well, true
Mikko
enough.
who?
Yeah.
I mean, for his on-ice performance, Mikko Rantanen did not live up to the expectations. And again, small sample size, hard to try to get acclimated to the new system and teammates. And now after the trade, you have to wonder, was his head really in the game to begin with?
Yeah.
Was he committed to trying to fit in? If he came to Carolina and had no intention of staying, then he was going through the motions. And his numbers reflected that. While he was with the Hurricanes. So again, There were a lot of mitigating factors here on Rantanen. I get it, and I'm not banging on the player, but look, he was a half a point a game player in the 13 games he was in Carolina. So far underneath, and then even former Governor Cooper got into the fray on Twitter, saying, hey, you fumbled this one, Mikko. But if your performance over the 13 games is what we had to expect, then we just move on. And so, I mean, when you got the former governor going in, third man in on this deal, it's pretty substantial.
So Ray's not from Raleigh, but so the Rialto Theater, I used to work security there for Rocky Horror Picture Show. I love the Rialto. It's a small independent theater at 5 Points. They've been around since the 1930s.
And it's owned by
Rialto
my boy.
sign. What's that?
My boy Hayes Permar is one of the owners of that place now.
Oh, I don't
Hayes
know how long he's owned it, but
it's not a long time. They've kind of rejuvenated it over the last couple years.
Who bought it to bring it back to life? I love it because the sign,
part of that group. Yeah,
the sign on the marquee says either Mikko or Rantanen puts ketchup on his barbecue. And I was like,
I don't think there's a bigger insult.
That's like, yeah, I can guarantee you that's the work. That's the work of Hayes Permar right there. That's beautiful.
I could see Rantanen and be like, what does that mean? And all the North Carolinians are like, oh my God, like that's really rude. So
I mean, it's like he basically said some derogatory things about Mikko's mother with that post or with that sign. It was
man.
That's like saying someone who's from Chicago puts ketchup on a hot dog. That's equally as bad. Yeah. That's equally as bad.
So Mike, I guess when we look at the first, it's not Eric Tulsky's first trade deadline, but he's the captain at the first trade deadline. Easy for me to say. Thank you, daylight savings time.
We'll edit that out. That's fine.
There we go. We always do. So the what did you think? Like, by and large, the whole Rantanen deal took up so much, and it was funny. I like that Eric decided to stay in the Lenovo theme and call it bandwidth. It took up so much bandwidth and so much time that he wasn't able to get the other deals done that he wanted. There is a heavy rumor about how Vancouver for Besser was a first-round pick away, and that's all that Vancouver would accept. Whether or not that was able to happen or not or whatever, there's been a lot of criticism. I wanted to get a realistic look at this one. And if you were to give him a grade overall, what's his grade?
Well, let's first start with the Brock Besser stuff. I don't know how to take this, but the Vancouver GM coming out and saying, if you had heard the offers I'd gotten for Besser, if I had told you what those were, I'd have to run out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What in the heck does that mean? Did he have to run out because the media was going to try to tackle him and kill him, saying, why didn't you do it? Or I'd have to run out of here because you guys would be laughing at me, or laughing at the offers or what. I don't understand. And maybe because I didn't hear him say it, so I don't have the proper context in reading it.
I would say a phrase, I'll jump in and just quickly say a phrase like that when said in Vancouver would mean he was basically saying there'd be a riot. And in Vancouver, you can't say the word riot based on the past.
Yeah, they've done riots.
Yeah, but they kind of do that sort of thing. So, yeah, it would not go well. All right.
So whatever he's implying about the offers for Besser, I don't necessarily know that Brock Besser would have been the answer. Because, he hasn't lived up to the full hype that he was. He might have gotten to half the hype, but he made such a splash as a rookie. I mean, he was incredible as a rookie, but you haven't heard much from him in the last couple of years. And I don't necessarily know that there was a whole lot of interest in more, mortgaging the farm down the road to pick up a guy like Besser. So, as getting to your original question of Eric Tulsky and the grade for this deadline, I think you give him probably a B. It's not a full blown A because but like Brad laid out, you traded away Marty Necas and Jack Drury, and in return, you got 2 future first rounders, 2 future third rounders, a 22-year-old right hand shot center iceman who's just, his career hasn't even gotten in the house to take off its coat yet, and he's on his way. And you described him, Ray, about the kind of player he is. The bulldog mentality and intense mindset and all the things, and you can score and all that. We have to also remember though that at the age of 22, you're still learning the league, let alone learning his system and everything else. But he sounds like with his mentality and style of play, he's a perfect plug and play guy under Rod Brindamore. So again, we'll see. The debut against Winnipeg will be interesting for sure. But I think you give Tulsky a B. And the other part of it too is, a friend of mine posted on Facebook that why would Tulsky admit that he didn't have enough time to do the deal? Well, because he's transparent, because he's honest with the fan base, because he's telling the truth. The deal was framed overnight, but they couldn't on Thursday night, but they couldn't get it done. Friday morning, the sides reconvened because the talk started after. I was getting ready to go to sleep, and I'm like, oh geez, the random thing's gaining legs. Oh man, how do I? All right, I got to get some sleep. This is going to have to wait for me until the morning. Nothing materializes Thursday night. Friday morning, they pick back up. And you start seeing, the framework is coming together, nothing in stone, could fall through. By the time it all gets consummated, I'm actually sitting at a Charlotte FC MLS press conference with the head coach looking ahead to playing Inter Miami this week. And then the tweet comes out, 8 years, $12 million per, framework is set, particulars, but this is going to happen. Okay, so that's 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. The deadline's 3 p.m. Yep. So it's not all finalized, and the trade call hadn't even happened because so many other teams had stacked up in front of him. Tulsky's being honest. He didn't have time. He didn't have time because he didn't know what he was getting in return fully. So he did not have time. By the time it's 2:00 and everybody's reported that Brandon's gone, okay, so now he's got an hour. Yeah. And he also has to try to make a deal in 60 minutes for a player that he feels will help, because he's not just going. It's not like somebody gave him a gift card, it's got $200 million on it. He's just going shopping and just picking stuff up off the shelves and saying, throw it in the cart. I don't care what it is, just throw it in the cart. Yeah. That's not how the guy operates. Eric Tulsky is. Look, if you hear the joke, if somebody says, "Oh, that guy over there is the smartest guy in the room," and if you don't believe him, just ask him. When Tulsky's in a room, nobody has to say that. They know who the smartest guy in the room is. Yep. It's like, who's the smartest guy? That guy right there. Yep. He's the smartest guy in the room, period. And the discussion ends. Tulsky is, from what I've seen of him, very meticulous. He is very, very big picture. He's always looking at, not just 5 feet in front of him, but he's also looking a mile or two ahead. And he's proven that, and I give him a B. Would I have liked to have seen him do something else? Yes, but at the time, when you don't know what you have going out the door, you can't fault the guy for not making a follow-up deal with 2 first rounders and 2 third rounders in the future, because it just wasn't there, and he wasn't going to take anybody and say, "All right, give me him for a first, and give me him for a first," because he also has to manage his current salary cap issue.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. You have to take into consideration all of the factors, all of the things actually make up the sum of the parts, and that's where he's got to keep his brain around that. And look, I could never be a GM. I couldn't. I can tell you right now, I'm not smart enough. I'm not that organized. I'm not that smart, period. So I think GMET. I got to get into the habit of doing that. GMET. I like that. I think I give him a B. And and there's also the chance that this trade deadline grade actually rises or even falls
Right.
if they whiff the picks or if Stankoven just flatlines and doesn't do anything else the rest of his career. But Tulsky on Friday talked about being a risk taker. They knew bringing in Rantanen and trading for him was going to be a risk, but the risk was worth chasing.
Yeah.
This trade, bringing Stankoven in and the 4 draft picks, and landing Mark Jankowski, who we haven't gotten started on, coming from Nashville for a 5th rounder, those are risks worth taking because now in the short term, 5 feet in front of his face, you just got a Tasmanian devil to wear number 22 playing for Rod Brindamore in his style of play. And he's going to be, on paper, he's a perfect fit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. On paper, Stanky's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
How it bears out on the ice, we'll see. But I give Tulsky a B for doing the things that he felt would help his team both now and down the road. Jankowski is 9 years in. Stankoven is 89 games in. But the immediate future now is the salary cap issue is a bit relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not perfect, but it's relaxed. This year, it'll get better going forward. They're not under a $12 million a year contract or $13.25 million a year contract for the next 8 years going forward. So that gives them flexibility down the road. And for this group that's in the room this year, they know what they're going to war with over the closing stretch of games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know what you got? Can you catch Washington? We'll see. Can Washington fall back a little? We'll see. Can you stay ahead of New Jersey and stay in the 2 spot in the Metro? We'll see. But this is the group they're going to do it with. And now, the skies have cleared. The trade deadline has passed. They can focus on the job at hand, and that is getting in the best position they can to get to the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, win 4, move on. Win 4, move on. We can talk about Nikishin later because Nikishin's he's not going to be around until June 1st at the earliest. At the earliest. And by the time you're in June, you're in the conference finals. Yep. So even if he does come over, do you plug him in the conference finals? Yeah, exactly. Exactly my point. So Nikishin is the guy who I would love to see I'd love to see him come to Carolina. He's not going to be the immediate help. I don't think. I could be wrong. Yeah. But right now the group that's in the room is the one they're going to take into the playoffs. And so I B for Tulsky, and this is and this is where we are, and we go forward.
Brad, I've got a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, but I want to make sure that I'm not cutting you out. Where do you stand? What grade would you give him?
So just the trade deadline, or going back as far as like the original Natchez injury?
I would say the trade deadline, because in and of itself, it's a strange animal.
Okay. And that's just for the record too, as we're recording this, that was what I was dealing with in my response, was trade deadline only.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm gonna give him an A-. And some people are like, how or why? But once again, at 2:59 p.m. on Friday, Rantanen has value for you. But everybody knows that the clock is going to strike 12 on Cinderella. And so you're not in the position of power in that trade. So to be in a position where Dallas has a lot more control and to still get Stankoven 2 firsts and 2 thirds, I'm totally okay with that. I would love to see Tom send the plane for Stankoven, because I know he was really excited about the game back home, like in Canada, I guess, when his family was all going to be there. Like, Tom, you want to win some PR after the Rantanen saga here? Send a plane up, fly him to Raleigh, put him in a suite, and the fans will love you for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the trade deadline, like, we definitely have to talk about Jankowski in a minute, but to Eric's, to his point about, like, I didn't have time to do anything else. I worry that a lot of people, like, have seen Moneyball because it's a great movie, And, in Moneyball, he's like, hang up as soon as you get the answer you want. Like, that is not how trades work. And that is not how trades work when you're up against a cap. Because if you remember, Billy Bean was spending at the bottom of the league and had tons of space, right? So Billy Bean could take on all the salary he wanted to or get rid of all this. I mean, salary's not a factor, right? But I see like the back and forth, 3-minute movie clip segment, boom, trade's done. Like, that is not how it works, especially for somebody who's as analytical as GMET. So I think he did really well, all things considering, because for me, your GM figured out the guy didn't want to be here. Now, that could be as simple as asking the guy. That could be the guy. It sounds like he was kind of giving us the like, well, yeah, maybe I want to look, maybe I want to be here, maybe I don't. But you have to figure out, is he going to resign? And as soon as the answer is no, then you start shopping him. He tried to get a deal done Thursday, which would have given him all of Friday to do supplemental deals, which just didn't work out. That's, it takes two to tango. And, GMET's one guy. So he was kind of hamstrung by Dallas and the agent. Because I think, is it Scott's the agent? I don't know that we're going to ever re-sign another Scott player who doesn't have term, honestly, because this is the second time. Because he's also DeHaan's agent. He's agent for a couple other guys. I don't see us ever going, hey, we're going to trade for that guy without term. It's like, who's the agent? Oh, no. We need an extension in place or this doesn't happen. Honestly, that's the agent's job. So I'm not faulting the agent. I'm just saying he really goofed this situation from taking the same money he could have gotten in Colorado where Mikko wanted to be to flipping him to Carolina and then the back and forth. And Mike said it earlier. Mikko comes in, the locker room hits the flu. You only have like 3 games and then it's 4 nations and the power plays at 7%. He could not have gotten here at a worse time. So if he came here with an open mind and then was here for a month and was like, I don't want to be here, I can't fault him for that necessarily because he saw the Hurricanes at their worst. However, what's the expression, right? If you can't take me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Applicable. And to your point earlier, Ray, about Stankoven, it is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog. So you bring in 5'8" Stankoven, who, if he plays like a grittier version of Jarvis, will fit in beautifully and will sell tons of jerseys.
Yeah.
But if you want size, we should talk about Jankowski here in a minute, who is listed at 6'4", 212. We all know that they tend to under-exaggerate those, so he's probably more like 6'4", 6'5", and like 225. He's not a big fighter. He has a fight every year or two. He's not a huge point getter. We talked earlier. He's kind of a larger version of maybe like Tyson Jost. Maybe he's your 13th forward, but does he bring size? Yeah. Can he hit people? Yeah. So it's balanced, right? It's if St. Louis can be in Tampa Bay and just light up the league as a small guy, then size. If this was 1990s, 2000s hockey, I'd be like, oh my god, everybody should be at least 6'3", but it's not. And a lot of teams have gone towards smaller guys because for every Trouba or that's out there, you have to catch the small guy to hit him, right? And then for every one of those guys that's out there, there's 2 smaller guys in the league now, right? The league has become faster and more skilled. So these, 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" guys just aren't as uncommon as they used to be. It's, you do need some bigger guys on the roster to help, fill in, mostly for protection. I mean, it's, the days of the goon more or less are gone. But Edmonton took a lot of liberties with Mikko Rantanen last night, who isn't himself a big guy. And it just happened. And the Stars let it happen. And Carolina has had a bit of a reputation for that. But this year, I think they've turned the corner some. We saw Drury early on. Like Mike said, KK's like, during the national anthem, like, I think I want to fight somebody tonight. Like, like, hey, do you want to drop the gloves? Yep, let's go. And set the tone, right? So I'm overall very happy with GMET's performance. Like I said, I'd give him like an A- because he took what could have been a terrible situation once he knew Mikko was going to sign. And actually, I think got a lot of value back. Had that happened Thursday, I think you would have seen probably at least like the 28 first flipped for more help. But if you run at a time, were the Hurricanes likely to win the cup this year? No. But now you go into next year with like 37 million in cap space. Nikishin will be over. As a rookie, he'll be on ELC. Like huge savings over Orlov and Burns, right? Scott Morrow, ELC, huge savings. So you're filling in gaps on defense with very good players at low cost. So instead of getting one superstar, give me 2 stars.
Yeah.
You know, and instead of giving me one $14 million guy, give me 2 $8 million guys who are very good because the production's going to outweigh the one. And that also protects you from injuries. It protects you from a guy going cold. It protects you from a lot of things. So overall, I just can't be mad about how this all shook out because Natchez and Drury both had contentions every time we had a contract. Drury had said at one point he wanted out. We all know Natchez had a bag packed as far as I'm concerned. Those guys weren't staying. And you got 2 firsts, 2 thirds, Stankoven for them. And you're not any worse. You're certainly not any worse off.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, go ahead, Mike.
Let me just also point out to let me hop on your train of thought here. Not only did he acquire those assets, but what went out the door? What didn't go out the door? Morrow didn't go out the door.
Yeah.
Bradley Nadeau didn't go out the door. Felix Unger-Sorum didn't go out the door.
Yeah.
You know, the guys that are Suzuki didn't go out the door. Guys that are doing really, really well right now. Unger-Sorum's numbers are what they want them to be, and he may be a little bit more of a long-term or developmental guy. But still, I mean, Unger-Sorum was good in camp and was one of the last guys sent down. Those guys are still Hurricanes prospects. So there is that pipeline that continues to get they're going to restock that pool as well, and their developmental guys. So this franchise long term, and I say long term as in the next 5 years as it stands now, is in pretty good shape because Tulsky did not send those pieces out. You know, so that is also something to factor in because at some point, you know, Jordan Stahl's not going to be in a lineup.
Yeah.
That day's coming. It's a lot closer than it was when he got here. You know, guys like Martinook won't be in the lineup. Guys like Burns won't be in the lineup. And who's coming due on a new deal? Is it Slavin that's coming up?
No, he signed.
Oh, he signed. There's a name that's going to be. There's one of the guys that they've got to try to figure out for long term. It's not Aho. It's not Svatch. Anyway,
so next year's UFAs, real quick, are Hall, Roslovic, Fost, Robinson, Jost, Orlov, and Burns, which aren't coming back, Anderson. And then the year after that, you have Blake and Stankoven will be restricted free agents. So you're in pretty good shape UFA-wise until 2027.
Okay.
Slavin was the guy until he was locked down. He was the guy that everyone's thinking about in the long term, like, what are we going to do? And he took a haircut really for what he's worth compared to what he's making.
Well,
yeah.
what he's worth, we've, you know, like silently, I think we've all known that. And then Slavin goes to the Four Nations and has ESPN just drooling over him.
Yep.
I mean, Slavin deserves all his roses. I'm not going to lie. I've loved him since he got into the organization, and he's the best defensive defenseman in the league. Period. He does his job better than anybody else on the back end. But I got to be honest with you. The slurping from ESPN during the Four Nations was a bit over the top. It was a little uncomfortable. I'm just going to say I wanted Subban and Mess to just kind of get a room and handle their business off camera, whatever, you know, because look, Slavin deserves it, but it was borderline X-rated. It was really, you know, and look, I thought it was hysterical. Like, guys, we've known this for years. This is who he is. But, you know, but yeah, if that's the case in terms of what you just laid out there, Brad, in the future contracts and stuff, then Tulsky deserves a lot of credit for getting the house in order as this franchise moves forward because they've got cap flexibility. They've got a youth pipeline that didn't get sent out at the deadline. They've got really good players right now. And I don't know that you write off Carolina as a Stanley Cup contender just yet, because even though Dallas brought in Rantanen and Florida brought in Brad Marchand, who's not the same guy that he was 5 years ago. Nobody is the same guy they were 5 years ago in the league. And all these other teams made all these moves, and all these names started flying around. They've got to blend all those guys in together, just like Carolina has to blend in Jankowski and Stankoven. So nobody really knows how good these teams are going to be, because on paper, now everybody's a contender.
Yeah.
But you don't play the games on paper. So
No.
And you got to allow for injuries, right?
Oh yeah, and that's where I'll leave it. I'm not writing Carolina off. And unlike the national or international pundits have done at the death, Hurricanes. Boy, if you're Rod Brindamore, you're looking in this room and you've added two guys and you got rid of one that didn't want to be there. Okay, yeah. So nothing much has changed after that.
Super quick on Slavin. Really quick anecdote. So the kid who at the gas station where I go, who pumps my gas, I see him all the time. It's always just, hey, how you doing? Yep, fill her up, whatever. So yesterday I pull in and he goes, "Oh, hey, you're the guy who's a Canes fan, right?" I'm like, "Yep, that's me." He goes, "Jacob Slavin is so good." And that's from a Boston kid, a diehard, like the kind of Bruins kid who probably would normally be like, "Oh God, it's the Canes guy coming in. I don't want to fill his, I'm gonna short his gas or something, right?" But he would first thing is, "Oh, you're the Canes fan? Oh, Jacob Slavin is so good." I'm like, "Yes, we are aware, and when he is locked up, you can't have him."
I didn't realize the podcast was doing so well that you got the cash to pay someone to pump your gas. Good for you. Congrats, man. That's great.
It is a full 5 cents higher than the place where I pump my own gas. And so for $1 a tank, I'm 100% not touching that gross, disgusting gas nozzle. That's one of the few things I like about New Jersey. Is in New Jersey, unless they've changed it, in New Jersey, you're legally not allowed to pump your own gas.
Correct.
And at first I'm like, this is dumb because I'm quicker, but now I'm like, I don't have to get out of the car in the rain and touch a dirty, smelly gas pump. And this is good. I like this.
So to get to this, okay, this is, I've had so many things that I wanted to jump in on, and my mouth is bleeding from the tongue biting. So first of all, let me work at this in reverse. Number one, about Slavin. There is a phrase that a lot of people use that I will clean up, because we are a family program where you have run out of F's to give. I ran out of I told you so's to give. I ran out of I told you so's. We have been saying it for years about Slavin. No one's listening. I'm glad everyone got to look at that. Now, as for the grades for Eric, I feel like between the three of us, this turned into Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Mike started at B. Brad started at A-, and I come in at a solid B+. So I don't want to say that I'm just right, but that's where I give him the B+. For all of the reasons that both of you have stated. Okay. But now, time to butter up Mike. You pointed something out. Yes, you pointed something out that is a perfect nugget that everyone hasn't considered. And the one thing that makes me love Eric Tulsky more, regardless of how the trade went: transparency. When you talk about management across the NHL, the managers and owners play the cards so tight to the chest, it feels like they're not even looking at their own cards. Like, that's how tight to the chest. They can't even see it. And Eric Tulsky sat down in front of that mic after the first trade deadline where he was in charge, and he shared everything. He put it all out there for you. And that is not something that fans are used to. So because they haven't seen the inner machinations of what happens at a trade deadline, they don't know how difficult it is. They don't know how much trouble there can be when you're putting all of these things together. And he comes out and states straight facts. And Mike, you said that, and it was like, thank you. Transparency. That's what people want out of everything. The complaint about politics, the complaint about ownerships, the complaint about everything. Ian, you're so secretive and they're hiding stuff from us and blah, blah, blah. Eric Tulsky said it all. Transparency. It's beautiful. And none of us are used to it. No one. So you have that and you look at it. Now, I want everyone to, like, all of our listeners, please go back and look at what happened with the knowledge and the transparency that Eric Tulsky shared with us. I'll learn to say GMET, I promise. It's
easier on
that's
social
your
media
thing.
because
Yeah,
it's four characters when you have a character limit. So and now it's like ASAP. I say it out loud, even though I should just say the thing.
Brad, you need to copy that and really, make some more money.
I didn't create it. I don't know who did, but
someone did. Well, so then sign it for yourself because it's brilliant.
And it'll help pay for the gas pumping.
That exactly.
We don't have any sponsors, so something has to.
Yeah. Yeah. That is honestly, guys, the transparency was so refreshing. And Mike, you're the one that brought it up. That's why I am so happy you are our guy. I'm taking total, I hope you don't mind. We are going to take total possession of you. You are our guy. I know you talk to a lot of people and that's your gig. That's what you do. But as far as Hurricane podcasts go, you are our guy for comments and refreshing truths and knowledge like that. So there's the buttering up that I'm talking about.
But
it's not
for so many decades now.
Yeah, it's not buttering up though when it's the truth. When it's the absolute truth. Mike, you nailed it, and it was the epiphany that I think every fan, every Caniac needs when they look at and judge Eric Tulsky from the future. The last thing that I'll say is all of these picks, I want everyone to go back to after July 1st from last season, okay? And we lined up the team and made pickups like Robinson, like Roslovic, a few others. And Roslovic, just very quick, I'm glad you got the Rolex. Keep it. If he asks for it back, punch him in the face the next time we play Dallas. Okay? You're not getting that Rolex back. So that's that. And that's probably the cheapest Rolex ever. You gave up your number for 13 games and you get a Rolex. Good on you. Jack, keep the Rolex. Punch him in the face otherwise. Now, sorry. Back to after July 1st. Eric Tulsky did an amazing job assembling the team that he did after July 1st. The signings, all the rest of it. And we shot out like a cannon at the start of the season. I look at those draft picks that were picked up, and I say, it doesn't matter that he didn't flip it for a UFA before the trade deadline. We have to do what Mike stated as well as draw back and wait. Instead of seeing in the immediate, draw back and wait and watch what he does with all of those picks July 1st. And what a powerful position that we're in asset-wise to make the trades for guys that we're going to need going forward. As far as the playoffs this year, no one thinks that we're going to win. Remind,
Except for Mike.
let's
Mike said
go
it's
back
possible.
to the LA Kings finishing in 8th place. Get your foot in the door. The way the team has played these last 3 games, all they have to do is get their foot in the door, and everyone could win. And no matter who you brought in, as Mike pointed out as well, you could bring in an all-star lineup that resembled any of the Four Nations team. Does that mean that you're going to win it all? No, not in the least. And that's the joy of the NHL playoffs. It's also kind of the joy that you would have in finding ways to get more teams in as well. But that's another story for another day. We want to keep moving on. But thank you, Mike. That is a point that I don't think anyone should gloss over. And you brought it up. I think I can speak for Brad, because in our conversations over time, we didn't say anything about the transparency and how great that is and how refreshing that is. Mike, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My asks for a contract with the podcast are 8 years and $12. So if we can do 8 by 12, we're good.
Yeah,
Done.
24. How's 8 by 24?
Next time you're in Boston, instead of $12, I'll buy you lunch.
All right, that's good.
Gosh.
That's a deal.
So
signed.
So great.
A value of at least $12, which in Boston basically means at least McDonald's.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, yeah, go ahead, Brad. I was going to say let's get to Brad, because Brad
he's got interesting information.
This is part of my day job when we have the breaking news. We need like some kind of stinger music. Breaking news.
I could cut something in. Yeah. I feel a professional now. So this was just recently posted. Chip Alexander wrote this morning after morning skate. Aho's first impression of Stankoven, ? Very explosive, very fast, good shot, very good kid, smart too, I like it. Quote, he didn't butcher one drill, which is kind of nice, end quote. Which is kind of funny to me, because part of me is like, is he being a little petty or is he just being nice? And I don't know which one it is, but I'm kind of choosing the former. But Aho so far seems to be a fan of Stankoven. So that's good to see, right? You know, and some of that's Aho, right? He may not wear the C, but my man knows how to lead with the letter and everything else he's done. So, you know, getting those vibes in early is a big deal.
There are times when I really wish that we could do video and so you could see
we can. I
the
just don't
look
have a
of
face for
joy
video, my friend.
And astonishment with for you, Mike. So I'm going to let you jump in and take a reaction to this, because that's wow.
Boys, that is that's
that
such
feels like a cut. I'm not crazy, right?
That's a Shorzy chirp if I ever heard one.
Isn't it? Oh, I love it.
I mean, he just I wasn't there. I didn't hear him say this. Reading it in the context in which Brad delivered it, that is that's a stick to the chops of Rantanen right there.
Oh,
yeah.
That's just ice cold. That was just cold blooded. And I mean, it's
butcher. Butcher's the word he used.
Read the quote again about the drill.
He didn't butcher one drill, which is kind of nice. He goes on to say, I think he's going to fit in our system really nice. But the quote, in quotes from Chip, is he didn't butcher one drill, which is kind of nice.
Oh, man.
And now y'all know why I said, like, I want to talk about this real quick.
That's thank you for sharing that. That's so awesome. And
that's a stick right in the teeth.
It might be a little bit lower than that. So, you know what? Like, oh my goodness, that is silent assassin evisceration.
Oh,
Like, can
Aho
you?
has never hit anyone on the ice as hard as that, I don't think.
No, and he's actually
fair assessment.
proved to be feisty of late. I've seen more of that lately, which is
Feisty
pretty
Aho
nice.
tends to be the best Aho. I'm all
And
for feisty Aho.
and to your point, Ray, the feistiness. Think about
Mhm.
that letter, that open letter to the Canes fans from a week and a half ago or whatever it was. You know, not winning the cup sucks. You know, not doing the job, not getting it done sucks. I mean, when he is saying things like this, I mean, Sebastian, I'm never questioning his motivation. His motivation, though, took a step up
Yeah.
with those words that I read. I thought,
And
I mean, look, when you got a
I
player that's
would
going to come out and say stuff like that, I think that speaks a lot about how tired these guys are of being, not at the top of the mountain when it's all said and done.
I want to reread that letter now because now that we know Rantanen kind of decided a week ago he didn't want to be here, I need to read because now that just like everything else, like now when you add context, like right, I'm an 11-year-old and we're constantly look at context, like when words, meanings like context. Now I'm wondering if there isn't more context and subtext in that Aho email to the fans. I have
Yeah.
chills. I'm excited. I mean, I was excited before because even if you call it addition by subtraction, even if you say, look, he just wasn't a good fit, even without bringing in Jankowski and Stankoven, we on the show last week. I said for me at now it's either I'm upset or I'm apathetic, and I'm choosing to be upset about it. I feel so
Yeah.
much better than I did. And we had a great January. I have great January, 10-win vibes now. And the
Mhm.
more we talk this through, I'm like, maybe the locker room was a lot more off than we realized because I on social media on our podcast I said, look, the dude just got traded. Came out of left field. Like, give him time. His advanced metrics are good. He's not putting up points, but and you need that, but everything else looks okay. And people were like, he looks disinterested, he looks lazy, he looks this. And I was like, no, like give the dude time to fit in, right? What does he need? He needs a full training camp. And now looking back with more context, you go, I think I was
You were
wrong.
right all
I think
along.
I
Yeah.
was giving him the benefit of the doubt when other people were just seeing what, just this is what I see, right? That's what we try and do. And it's a tough job, right? It's when Ovies and Giglio mentioned us on their podcast the other week because I was complaining about nobody will just ask Rod Brindamore point blank, like, why don't you do something about Burns? Like, they gave me the benefit of the doubt, right? And we're like, well, we knew what answer we were going to get, so we phrased it in a way that wasn't like contentious and awesome. I get that. I appreciate them for not just like throwing me under the bus there. But looking at the context now, I want to kind of take some time to think about like what have we seen these last couple weeks and what did we see at Four Nations and what like how much of this was maybe we attributed or I attributed I'll just speak for myself to locker room sickness, the power plays just on an absolute cold streak. How much of that did I attribute to us and Miko not, and how much of it was more even like we were not playing well before, but also how vested was Miko in the locker? Yeah, that opens up. There's a lot of questions now I have after hearing his interviews.
So, Mike, we'll flip this to you because we're going to be almost out of time. And I look, as much as I'd like to keep talking to you for 3-4 hours because of your knowledge and your whatever. Again, daylight savings time. I want to let you get your rest and you've worked hard. And you know what I mean? So you
Hey,
be able to
you know
go
what?
back to bed and
I make
chill.
I make I make no excuses. I power through, Vice. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, he's got a
Look,
makeup artist and stuff, dude. I mean, he'll
well,
be fine.
Two of them.
two of them.
See,
See
I
that?
hate them.
talk about budget, sir. Two makeup
This
artists.
this is why I'm
Ooh la
happy
la.
we're audio only. By the way.
Yeah, there is a reason this is an audio only podcast, and this right here, this mug, that's exactly
Yeah.
why.
Jeez, man, everyone's turned into the self-deprecating virtuoso. I thought I had that market cornered for myself. Look, this whole thing, What a whirlwind. What a absolute hurricane. What This is going to be a weird subjective question. Would you do it again? Knowing the way it turned out, knowing the experience that every fan went through and how it turned out in the end, would you do it again? Would you, as if you couldn't change anything, is this something that you would want to experience again? It's like the emotion that's tied to it. And as you were talking about, Mike, The Godfather, it's just business. It's so hard to separate the emotion side of it when you're tied into a team and love. I mean, we are called Caniacs for a reason, and it's legit. It's legit. I put the Caniacs up against any nutcase fan out there. I'm looking at you, Toronto. I'm looking at you, Edmonton. I'm looking at you from the team that shall not be named. I'm looking at all of you. You cannot match the love for your team and its players quite like the Caniacs. Would you do it again? I don't know if you want
I'm going
Brad
to jump in real quick, Ray, because I'm going to reframe your question a tad.
Sure, please, because I don't get them
absolutely
right.
100%. Give me somebody who's going to swing for the fences when it's appropriate, or do you want more of the Ron Francis era where we're building for next year? Well, we're going to build for next year. Well, we're going to build for next year. Well, we're going to build for next year. And I know that I'm oversimplifying the Ron Francis era. And I apologize to you, Ray. I'm not trying to knock. I'm really not trying to knock him. But I want somebody who's willing to take a risk and make good things happen. Because let's say 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of those moves work out. Are you that much closer to a cup? If you are, then yes, like that's what I want. I love the Hurricanes. When the Hurricanes were terrible, I watched the Hurricanes. When they were missing the playoffs, but they were not bad enough to get first overall picks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you don't want to be. Like we talked about the apathy piece. That's where the apathy sets in. We're not so bad that we see a future, and we're not good enough to really see this getting better. We're just kind of floating by. So I would rather have the highs and lows, especially with somebody in charge who isn't, he took a swing, he missed a little bit, you got good return. This isn't a GM who's trading the farm. This is not Sweeney and Neely in Boston mortgaging everything to try and win a cup. And they won a couple, but that's been a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And now look at their farm system. They have nothing. They traded away a bunch of guys that they really probably wanted to keep just to rebuild the prospects and the picks pool. So I will take this 10 times out of 10.
I think when you ask the question, would I do it again? Knowing, and you said, and you phrased it, knowing that this is the end result.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes. I would absolutely say yes, because I do think that Carolina ends up better on the end of it, on the other side. But here we get back into context, okay? And as Brad pointed out, under Ron Francis, we're building for next year. We're building for next year because he had to build for next year. That team was nowhere near ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
It was nowhere near ready to be a contender. This group under Rod Brindamore is contenders. I mean, they're in a window, and as much as Mikko Rantanen could have helped prop the window, maybe open a little more, did it shut a little bit closer with Rantanen's departure? I don't think so, because he was only here for. I mean, did he finish his cup of coffee with the Hurricanes? Yeah. I don't. I mean, he had one, but I don't know if he got to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely do it again, because again, the makeup of this team and the status of the organization right now, is in a different place than it was under Ron Francis. And again, not knocking GMRF, which doesn't roll off the tongue that well. Not knocking Ronnie at all. He was trying to build. He was trying to, and to a certain degree, did pretty well.
Very well.
You think about the guys that were here, the Hayden Fleury's, the Marty Natchuses. I want to say these are guys that were under his watch. Morgan Geekie was a guy under his watch. And there was talk going into Friday that Geekie and another guy, Tufty, I think, could have been coming to Carolina for Roslovic and Jost.
I wanted to so bad.
Because Boston, obviously Boston has, had both hands on the plunger and destroyed their season. With that, they're. I think the loss to Carolina was okay. We're at the deadline. We can blow this thing up now. If you're going to ship out your captain, you basically run up the white flag, and that's fine. Teams are in those positions. I get it. But to the question, I would have absolutely gone through this again, knowing that Rantanen wasn't going to re-sign. Now that I know that, because of what was not given up and what was acquired to move Rantanen to his spot in Dallas now. I absolutely would have done that, because at the end of the day, you've got a general manager who identifies a risk worth taking. And Rantanen was a risk worth taking. There's no question about it. His numbers, his career numbers speak for themselves. He was a guy that if he stayed and was bought in and wanted to be here and all the things, could have been a tremendous offensive weapon and Hurricane addition.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't want to be here, you don't want him there. And that's fine. There's, like I say, it's not personal. It's strictly business. His business decision took him elsewhere. The Hurricanes benefit at the end of it by getting the future picks. They get Stankoven, and they didn't give up anything off the farm system other than a fifth-round pick this year for Mark Jankowski in Nashville. And you can find fifth-rounders that made NHL careers and had good ones. There's not many, but they're out there. If Tom Brady's the 199th pick overall and wins, 6 Super Bowls, whether, it can't happen. Terrell Davis was a 6th-round pick running back.
Yeah.
5th or 6th, and he is a Hall of Famer. He's a potential Hall of Famer. He's great. So I think that I would absolutely do it again, and I would do it again in this particular manner. And to what Brad was talking about, the benefit of the doubt, and shout out to the OGs, Elias and Julio, love those guys. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt, like I'm guilty of as well with Rantanen.
Mm-hmm.
You factor in all the things. He comes when they got the flu, the power plays in the toilet. He's shell shocked from being dealt. All the things that are going on, then the Four Nations and all, like we've outlined earlier, all those things. Like, you got to give the guy a chance to get settled in. But then again, maybe he had no intention of settling in. Maybe he had no intention of trying to be a good fit. Maybe he had every intention of, okay, if I get dealt at the deadline, great. If not, I'm walking in free agency anyway. So I'll know what my life is like after March the 7th. I'll know exactly, at 3:01, I'll know exactly what my life is going to look like. Either I'm going to be elsewhere or I'm going to finish the season in Carolina and I'll make a decision in the summer. I think that's how he viewed it. And it's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. And that, all that being said, I absolutely would have done this again, because you, as a Hurricanes fan, y'all want the shiny new toy.
Mm-hmm.
And Rantanen was a shiny new toy, superstar. We've never gone out and actively gotten a guy like this. It was a huge energy boost to the fan base. We actually went out and did this. And then it plays out the way it plays out. There's understandable bitterness. I get it. There's understandable pettiness and angst, and I can't believe we couldn't re-sign him. And no, typical Carolina, we can't do this. We can't. No, you're viewing it through the wrong lens. But I get the passionate glasses that are being looked through when it's all going down. I get it. Totally get it. My Chicago Blackhawk fandom was doing handsprings when Florida said, "Yeah, we'll take Seth Jones." Oh,
yeah.
And every Blackhawks fan I know is like, Seth Jones is gone. That's the best fate of the.
And again, it's from the fan side of it. I hated the acquisition of Seth Jones at the start, and his play never really lived up to the numbers. But he's a very good player on a very bad team. So if you can move that contract off the books and look to the future, hey, I'm all for it. Do it. And they finally did it. So I get the passionate side of things for the fans. I get it. But when you look at it pragmatically and you look at what transpired, who went out, what's come in, now we're past the deadline, you know where your team stands, and you know that the future is bright. You know that you've got the future draft capital, you've got the kids in the system, and you got a pretty damn good hockey team right now in the Metro that's trying to chase down Washington, who has blown everybody's mind with the way that they played this year. So, yes, I absolutely would do it again in the way it's gone and the way it all went down.
Before we jump to the look ahead and wrap things up, I've got bullet points that I want to state and we'll
please
get them out of the way. Number one, and to tie immediately in what you just stated and what Brad kind of spoke about, it reminds me of the cliche statement, be careful what you ask for. Right? I mean, that kind of hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? So that's my first bullet point.
It drives it right into the board. It drives the nail right into the board. That's well done.
Fill them in. I love Shorzy. Thank you for mentioning Shorzy too. I love Shorzy. Holy crap.
Season 4 was so good.
So yeah, there's another bullet point that I got to throw in there. Number two, I'm going to pat myself on the back. When you were talking about the Bruins flushing and stuff, I think I came up with one of the funnier statements, posts, and I put the picture of it at the deadline. The Bruins went full Oprah. You get a star. Yeah. You get a star. You get a star. Like it was, and so that was mine. It made that when all of those guys went out the door, it felt like it was full Oprah, like just making everyone else happy. And it didn't matter what they got. They were just gifting. So full Oprah there. Third, and one of the most, and this is perhaps ultimately petty, I cannot wait for what will absolutely happen when Dallas plays Colorado in the playoffs, very likely in the first round. I have been licking my chops just at the thought of what that series will be like. And if that is the series that happens in the first round, it won't matter what is happening anywhere else in the league. That will take up all of the oxygen, just like the Rantanen deal took up all of the oxygen of every day. Did you guys know that Pittsburgh dealt Bunting on March 5th?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
mean,
well,
I did.
Yeah, but I did.
Talked about it. Yeah, well, of course you did because you're the expert, and that's why we bring you in.
I've got to follow these things. Yeah,
but it was just like, wait, Bunting was dealt.
It was certainly overshadowed. I only recognized it because he was a former Cane.
Yeah, it totally blew my mind. It caught me off guard. And then I think of the last bullet point thing, and it will lead more into our immediate. I like to draw back and look at the last 18 games. We're going to focus in on the next, 4, but look at the next 18 games and the races going in and getting a chance to watch these guys come together. I think that the gelling is going to happen really quickly based on Stankoven and frankly Jankowski too, because he actually kind of plays a rough tumble. He is aggressive, can be aggressive, and good in the face-off dot. I think he fills in, and he might be just extra, but he's depth, and depth is always what you need going into the playoffs. I love our position going forward. So before we look at the next 4 games, make our predictions and stuff like that, if you guys could just take a quick peek at the race to the finish, what you see happening, what you think it will look like.
let me jump in and I'll start here. As far as um, the playoff race itself, like you alluded to earlier, just get your foot in the door because all it takes is a hot goaltender and everything else goes away. If Cucci or Anderson is either one of those guys is playing lights out, anything is possible. And Carolina's run into their fair share of regular season goaltenders who make 65 saves on 70 shots and they lose 6-5. We've seen it, or they take 60 shots and he stops 59 of them and they lose 2-1. I mean, these things happen, but in the playoffs, it's so magnified. So the goaltending piece is going to be obviously huge in the playoffs. But yeah, I'm with you. I like the way that this group is going to come together. I agree with you because remember, the schedule lays out where this week they'll finish up, they'll have a couple of home games and then they get kicked out of their building because the NCAA tournament's coming to Raleigh. So Carolina's got to go, I think, to go out west again the week after. So it's one of those things that because of the way the schedule is, they're going to be able to spend a lot of quality time. The guys are going to be able to, practice, play games, do all that stuff at home to start the whole acclimation process for Stankoven and Jankowski.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go on the road where it's them against the world, and they only have themselves, that bubble, and that will further tighten that team together. And they know, these guys know, they know there's 18, 20 games left to go. The finish line is in sight. Okay.
Yep.
And so they know that they've got to be they've got to be a family, and they've got to be a family in short order. So everything's going to be at a quicker pace, but I'm with you. I think that I like the position that they're in. That doesn't mean that they're going to win the cup, but I like the position that they're in right now. And as they go forward and they get Stankoven and Jankowski into their group on the ice and off of it, and the off ice part is just as important because this group, these guys are pros. They all have a job to do, but hockey and pro sports in general, when you've got a team where the locker room is a fist and not an open hand, then you've got a team that is going to be dangerous. And this Hurricanes group under Rod Brindamore has never been as much of a fist in let's say 20 years, because that 2006 group that won the cup,
they were tight.
You weren't getting inside of this.
No,
you weren't getting inside of the fist. And this group has got the opportunity now that they know who they are, they know what the pieces are, and I think the West Coast trip is going to be huge in terms of tightening that group together. I'm with you, Ray. I think I like the position that they're in.
Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think the Metro itself is set. You're not catching the Capitals unless something crazy happens. I don't think the Devils can catch the Hurricanes, mostly because of injuries. The Devils have been absolutely decimated by injuries. I don't see how they can leapfrog you at this point. The Atlantic, the Leafs and Lightning might bubble around. So at least for the East, it's really wild card spots.
That's a good point,
those will be fun because you have Senators, Blue Jackets, Rangers, Wings, and Canadians. The Bruins, I'm not giving it to them because they have 66 points. They're only out 2 points, but they have 3 games over. Everybody else has a couple of games in hand. Like the Bruins just can't do anything at this. It's going to be bad. So
and nobody's left. Nobody's left in Boston either.
Right.
Like we talked about.
Everything that was working for them is gone because mismanagement. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
You're likely looking at Hurricanes, Devils. You're also likely looking at home ice against the Devils. So you start prepping for that now, right? Don't wait. Like let's focus up. And what Mike said is perfectly true. 3 home games this week. Jets today, Lightning Tuesday, Red Wings on Friday. Then you go on a 4-game road. You have Philly on Saturday and then a 4-day break. So 3 home games, a quick jaunt to Philly, and then the guys can relax a little bit, right? Good bonding time, going through things, kind of going through, making the new guys feel welcome. Then Sharks, Kings, Ducks as a roadie. So depending on, I'm assuming they won't fly out till the middle of the week. So it's kind of a short West Coast trip, but like Mike said, You're on the road, you're together, you're in hotels, you get a chance to gel. And then back at home, right? So home ice has been very good to the Canes this year. The road has been kind of ugly, and that's where they need to improve. And you need to get points this month because April, 3 out of 9 games are at home. The other 6 are on the road, including 2 back-to-backs, which are not the toughest matchups. Wings, Bruins, and then the very last 2 games of the regular season, you have the team that shall not be named and the Senators. So,
Yeah.
quick flight north. But I think this sets themselves up. Stay healthy, try and gel, and then to Mike's point, if the goaltenders have been playing better lately, if they can continue to play better, they don't have to be lights out. But if you can get good, solid goaltending, keep the opponents down to around 2 goals a game, and you can drive a little offense. And at some point through sheer luck, the power play is going to get better. I mean, like
Can
I
it
said,
get
through
worse?
sheer luck,
I mean,
it should be better than 7%
but
in the last month.
can it get worse? Ugh.
It can't. Well, yeah, it really can't get worse. I mean, it would be really. If it got worse, I would almost be like, hey, that's a change. Change is good. At least it's not stagnant. I'm hoping that maybe Stankoven comes in and being a right-handed shot, maybe that helps work. But I don't know where they're going to put him, if he's going to be on the bumper or something. But you never know when a small change like that, even if systemically they don't change a ton, but when they're moving, it looks okay. And maybe just a little tweak here, maybe it's just a confidence thing. It's just a mental block, and they're just not gripping their sticks. Who knows, right? Because I feel like when you bring in Mikko, what I said the other day on social media was like, don't run the offense through Mikko. Like don't try and get him involved because he's a superstar. Like I think some guys, might inadvertently do that. He's just one of the 5 guys in the power play. Like if he's open, the puck goes to him, great. If it doesn't, great. So Ghost has looked a lot better. I think he has 5 points in 6 games or something like that.
Much better.
Ghost looks like he is coming around, so that's a huge one. 4 games this week, 3 of them at home. You should get like 6 points this week. The Jets are good. The Jets is a revenge game. They spanked you in Winnipeg. I think it was 3-0 when we played them last month. And they handled you very well, right? The Lightning is always a fun tilt. That one's an ESPN Plus, I think, exclusive. And it's the Red Wings. And who doesn't like beating on the Red Wings? I mean, I've hated the Red Wings since before 2002, but that just cemented.
Yeah.
Like, and real quick, since I said Red Wings, I promise I'll make this short. Tulsky or like Yzerman as my GM, give me Tulsky. Because the Yzer plan is feeling very stale at this point. The Yzer plan is not doing well. It is on life support, in my opinion. I would much rather go with a guy like Tulsky, who is smart but willing to take smart risks.
Speaking of guys moved at the deadline, did you guys see that Mrazek went back to Detroit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's another one of those deadline deals that Mrazek went from Chicago to Detroit, and also Chicago was very benevolent in acquiring Shea Weber.
Yeah, wasn't that nice?
I did see.
It's not every day that you can sign a Hall of Fame guy, like someone who's actually in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because you have to be out of the league to get into the Hall of Fame. And no. Chicago went and got themselves a Hall of Fame defenseman. So give me Shea Weber over Seth Jones as a Blackhawks fan. I'm down with it. Yes. because here's the thing. Shea Weber will not hurt you on the ice ever again.
Certainly won't.
He won't.
Mike, what are you thinking about the week ahead? There's 8 points available. It's despite the home games that we have, that's not a terribly easy first 2 games at home.
No, it's not. And Winnipeg is going to be a really good challenge. And again, it's you want to get the points where you can. You want to, especially after the way they took care of business up in Winnipeg against you, you want to have a better outing. Carolina was not as good as they've been against Winnipeg, but the Jets are a wagon. I mean, the Jets are a good hockey team. I love Kyle Connor. I love Connor Hellebuck. Scheifele, Even to a certain degree. I mean, for some reason, Neil Pionk hits such a bad rap, but he looks like
Why?
he looks. I mean, you read comments about him all the time. It's like, what's wrong with Neil Pionk? I love
Yeah,
Neil Pionk. He's a nice player, and he
yeah.
plays well against Carolina. So good test against the Jets. Tampa and Jake Gensel, who's doing pretty well. I mean, he's another guy that Carolina had. Couldn't get a deal done with him. I think his asking price was a bit high, but he's paying dividends for the Ning this year, so good on him. And of course, you got Kucherov and the usual suspects with the Lightning. So that's going to be a tough one. I agree with Brad. I think you got to come out of this week with 6 points and try to maintain pace with what Washington's doing. I'm really waiting for the win to come out of the Capital sales. I know that they're in first in the Metro. I know they're having a really dynamite year. I know Ovi's chasing Gretz. I just don't buy them as being that good. I really don't. I think that their goaltending has saved them in so many situations, especially early. I mean, Charlie Lindgren was winning games, and I was like, who the hell is Charlie Lindgren? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then they gave him, I think they gave him a 2-year or 3-year extension in season. He's played well. And another guy that was a member of the famed Las Vegas Gamblers in fantasy hockey was Charlie Lindgren to start the year. So he's I have a hard time wrapping my head around that the Caps are this good. But I mean, the numbers are the numbers; they are this good. So trying to chase them down, win the division, it's a long shot. So if Washington comes back to earth a bit, then maybe they can do that. But no, I think right now you've got to just focus on picking up the points where you can. But the big picture is, like you mentioned earlier, Ray, get your foot in the door, get in the tournament, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. And very quickly before I look at the short week, I question whether New Jersey, they made a few deals at the deadline based on the injuries. I'm not convinced that they couldn't fall right out. Columbus is playing well, and I think they could catch New Jersey. Hence the panic. They didn't make panic deals, but they didn't give up on the season either after Hughes was determined that he was gone for the season. So, but I'm not convinced that they're in for sure. I think,
yeah, the Hughes injury is a game changer for the Devils, no question. He's so good.
yeah, he's tremendous. And so I think I don't want to say it yet because of course, and you know what? So I won't. I think the playoffs are certainly possible. We actually, if we want to see real success, we have to have home ice. So it is imperative that we get the number 2 spot. And so I'm hoping that the boys play like that and see it that way. I will be happy with based on the games that we have this week. I'll be happy with 4. I really want to see 6. I think that of the 2 that we have at home, this is going to sound insulting, but I think the Lightning game might be the easier one to get. But that is splitting hairs in the finest of manner. Because those 2 are a coin toss as to who's better on any night. Lightning have looked terrible at times, but they also look sensational.
Gensel's gotten me a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah, well, 6-5 in that one game, and Gensel gets the hat trick, and holy cow!
Yeah, I got 12 or 13 points that night.
Beautiful. So
quick,
I'll be happy with 4. I'll be happy with 4.
If you come in second in the Metro and you can't catch Washington, it's okay. Because if you can win your first round series, maybe you get Washington at some point. And the last time we played Washington in the playoffs, we all came around very happy. Rock McGinn.
Well, but you know what though, I understand the benefits of the home ice and all that stuff, but regardless if you have home ice or not in the playoffs, you've got to be able to win on the road. You just have to find a way to get a victory. In a best of 7, you've got to be able to at least get one on the road, if not two. So this is a really good opportunity, I think, for Carolina with their remaining schedule to figure that out, to make sure that the game that they play at home travels with them on the road, because you got to win on the road. It just makes life so much easier for a team that's got designs on winning the cup. You got to be able to win away from your building.
Mike, I cannot possibly overstate how great it is to have you with us, especially after a very important date in the franchise history, frankly, and what we've been through. You've helped us walk through the whole adventure. You blow our hair back with the comments about the transparency and stuff. There's just no way to overstate how great it is to have you join us, because you're the best.
Always love having you here.
It's so great to have you here, and it can't possibly be overstated. That's from the heart. Yeah.
I truly appreciate the sentiments, boys, and I'm more than happy to come on with you guys anytime you like. And it really is. This is a lot of fun, because I don't get to cover the NHL on a daily basis like I used to when I lived in Raleigh, but I track the league like it's going out of style, and to just sit here and talk pucks with you boys is always a lot of fun. So thanks for having me. It's great to be involved.
Our Solarte post Cup win episode will be an all-time banger.
I don't know if I'll be. I don't know if I can't promise I'll be sober. I might be on a Blueberry Bulldogs Cup bender after that lasts into July.
As long as you bring me and Brad with you.
we will. There's a little button I can tip if there's R-rated content, and I will tick the button for that episode happily.
There we go.
What's the breaking news from the Pro Shop?
So Carolina Pro Shop just posted on Twitter, and people have copied it over now to Blue Sky. Free nameplate replacement. If you purchased a Rantanen jersey from the Carolina Pro Shop in-store online, bring in the jersey and the receipt, and they will give you a new nameplate through August 31st. So we're about to see a lot more Jack Roslovic jerseys.
Jack Roslovic stock is through the roof. And you know what? You talked about the Rolex earlier. I didn't want to jump in because you were rolling on the thought. But, man, Jack Roslovic is definitely cut from the same cloth as Eric Tulsky, because if you can negotiate a Rolex for a jersey swap and then you get your number back, I mean, that's the movie Draft Day. I want my draft back.
I was wondering if he was going to go back, and he did. And I was like, yes.
He was
still the best 96 in Hurricanes history.
He was back in 96 at 301.
Yes,
boys.
He was.
301 Friday's like, oh, no. 96. Let's put here. Boys, here's my 3 sweaters. Swap the 96 off of that one. Put my name on there. Oh, that's great. I love it. Yeah, that was beautiful.
So we break 2 stories here. This now goes right to the very top of episodes for the Storm Cellar. It is the very top. We break 2 stories. We've got Mike Solarte with us. Brad, how do we beat this? We got to come back next week and do this all over again. And I'm not besmirching.
Like I said, the Mike Solarte Stanley Cup Championship episode will be an all-time heater.
When we do look at that. There it
Mike's
is.
got his Stanley Cup.
I love that. Well, very well played. Hoist the cup. Oh, look at that. It's even got the engraved one. Some of the I know it's got something. It just makes it look like it's engraved. The cheap ones, like the one I have, it's just all gray and there's no impressions or anything in there. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Quick fun fact. When we went to the Hockey Hall of Fame before the Toronto game with Carolyn O and her boys, we got our picture with the Stanley Cup, and the Hurricanes part of the band was facing forward. So that's actually in the photo. It nice. Happened to be positioned just right to get. I was able to just point to it. It was super cool.
Oh, I hate to say this is it, but it is it. There's really only one way to conclude it other than saying thanks again, Mike. My goodness.
Thank you. Yeah. After the
There's
trade
like-
deadline, the day after the trade deadline, and I forgot about daylight savings time. So
Yeah.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime you guys want to chat, I am always available.
One last thing. Go Canes.
go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.